Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Gorman. Welcome to Prism New England's coverage of the world champion Boston Celtics.
Johnson down the lane, rejected by Parrish. Pierce for the game. Got it!
Tatum takes it, makes it!
I had gone into the military after I got out of college and had gone to flight school and spent about 5 years in the Navy, and then came back and really was kind of clueless as to what I wanted to do. I'd always thought that would be a very cool job to be able to call games, you know, to be there, because it was what you wanted to be. If you couldn't be the athlete on the court, if you were the guy who called the games, you got there and you started to work when the game began, and when the game was over, you were gone. I got a job, fortunately, at WNBH in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and the thing about small-time radio, it's worth any college degree you could possibly get, because you get to do everything. You learn how to edit, you learn how to make up everything. You name it, you do it. Read the news, do sports, and also there was this philosophy that if you could sell it, we'd put it on the air. So I went to the people I was working with and I said, if I can sell high school basketball, will you put it on the air? And they say, sure, we're just doing nothing at that time of night anyway. I did a lot in New Bedford High School, New Bedford Vote, Dartmouth, down in there, and nobody was telling me how to do it. That was probably the nice part. And so I just was able to try to figure out how I wanted it to sound. Apparently it sounded okay. Wow. Wow. Look at that, will you? Dave Cowens. Dave, very idiosyncratic guy, drove a cab in the city of Boston because he just thought that was a good thing to do. Played unbelievable basketball and played with an intensity that I think has never been really matched by any player. When Dave was on the court, he was 120% all the time, and that made him who he was, and has made him one of my favorites of all time, and still remains one of my favorites. He lives up in northern New England on a lake and is a very happy guy. And I see Dave about 3 or 4 times a year, and Dave, if you're watching, if this makes the cut, which I hope it does, thanks for all those great moments out on the court. Now I was the 6 and 11 guy at Channel 12 in Providence doing sports on the news, but part of the package we had was a 5-game package at Providence College. We had a meeting one day, I remember distinctly, and they said, we don't know who's going to do color. We'll try to find somebody to do an analyst. And I said, well, what about Tom Heinsohn? And they went, oh, Tommy's not going to want to come from Boston down here, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, why don't we try? And they said, you try and see what you can do. So the beauty was that things were much more simple. I don't want to seem like the old timers. Things were simpler in those days. So I called the Boston Celtics main office in Boston, and I got this woman. She answers the Boston Celtics. I said, Tom Heinsohn. And she said, well, he's not here, but I can give you his home phone. There's no cell phones then. She gives me the home phone. 5 minutes later, Tommy answers the phone at his house. I tell him who I am. He says, let's meet and have some lunch, talk about this. So I go up the next day, I meet Tommy, we have lunch. He sells me an insurance policy, that's no lie, over the course of lunch, but also agreed to do the games. So we did 5 games. Providence College, they were local, Providence College against Holy Cross, against BC.
59 seconds, Tucker a runner. Good, he's fouled! Oh my, Ricky Tucker!
And he would not be denied.
We did those 5 games together, and that was my introduction to Tommy and working with him. And it was really those 5 games in Providence that Tommy came up with a feeling that he could work with me, that I wouldn't get in his way. If we had never done those 5 games in Providence, no shot I'd get the job. But Tommy stepped up and he said, hey, I think this guy can work with us, and I like him and I want to work with him.
I'm Mike Gorman along with Tom Heinsohn. Welcome to our coverage of basketball playoff style with the Boston Celtics.
The very first game I was to do with Tom, I had done all my homework. I had these 3x5 cards, you name it, I had color-coded. So I got it all spread out in front of me up in that first balcony that we used to do the games over, the Technique sign in the old garden.
We have the prime spot that was ever created to view a basketball game.
And Tommy comes walking by and he looks down, he's smoking a cigarette, he goes, what's that like? You know? And I said, oh, those are the notes we're going to use during the game. At which point he reaches down, he crumples them up in a little ball, just goes like this and tosses them off the balcony. And I mean, that's like a day and a half of 8-hour-a-day work putting those things together for my first game. So I look at Tommy and I say, what are you doing? And I'll never forget, he put his arm around me and he said, we're going to talk about what happens in front of us, that's all. I said, okay, and that's what we did for the next 40 years. It gave me a level of anticipation every time I would sit down to do a game that Larry was involved in, wondering what I was going to see tonight that I had never seen before.
Bird with the pass to the
Sigma.
There aren't any players I really can think of in my mind that I look forward to in that way. But I knew as soon as, again, Larry got onto the court, what he wanted to do was win the game, first and foremost. And whatever it took, that's what he did. Sometimes it was diving for a ball.
Steal by Bird, who crashes into the press table.
You name it, he did it, because that got 2 points. And I love him for that. I love the fact that before every game I sat down, I'm thinking to myself, I'm seeing something that's probably going on SportsCenter later on. It might be the lead story right here tonight. And that was, in those days, as a play-by-play guy, before the anchors did all the voiceovers, he used to try to get on to SportsCenter. That was a big deal if they got your voice on there. So Larry gave me a lot of guided opportunities for that.
Bird with the steal behind the back to Nate Archibald, back to Bird. All right.
Max was out on the court to begin with, and then Danny was there, and Dennis Johnson was there, and Chief was there, and McHale was there, and Bird was there. And they just always won, always would win. So I very quickly learned that if you are the play-by-play announcer for a good team, people think you're pretty good. So I was lucky enough, again, to be in the right place at the right time.
Trying to get it back to Bird. Good double team. They find Parrish. Robert got it! Cowens at the buzzer.
Bird stealing the pass from Isaiah Thomas on the inbounds play and getting the DJ on the cut and getting the basket out of that. That was remarkable. I mean, the Garden went from dead silent.
Thomas wants to get it in quickly. Does to Lambier. Stolen by Bird on the cut to DJ. Yes!
To just blow the roof off the place in the space of about 2 seconds, 3 seconds. So, I mean, that was just certainly a memorable moment.
Well, this balcony is rocking and swaying right now. It's supposed to be made of steel. What a play by Larry Bird.
I remember my wife-to-be was coming back from a year of studying abroad and was going to come through Boston, and we were going to try to talk about whether or not our relationship could continue. The game happened to go to overtime with Portland. She's going to get off the plane and see nobody there, and that's going to be the end of this, you know. But fortunately, Larry hit a jump shot from the corner.
Double team and Bird. Larry fake. Fall away. Hits it at the buzzer! All right!
I took my headsets off and I handed it to Tommy. I told her beforehand, he said, I got it, pal, go ahead, you know. Ran out, parked the car, I just turned the car off in the middle of the street outside the international terminal. Walked in the terminal. As I walked in the terminal, she was coming out the gate. Married 33 years. Big help from Larry, that's right. About time. About time he did something for me. I would always tell the audio guy, I want to know exactly what's going out on the air in terms of a mix. And I want to treat the crowd like it was the third player in the booth with me and Tommy.
Harrington talking to Pierce. And Joe DeRosa telling him to shut up. Pierce buries it right in Harrington's face.
Paul was always my favorite player. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be able to do his whole career, and as we know, it had some ups, had a lot of ups, downs, in and outs. That's the way Paul is. But I love the way he played. I love the passion with which he played. I did his last game for CBS at Kansas on a broadcast, and then saw him for his whole career in Boston. So I just felt a real attachment to Paul. I remember distinctly when he was named captain, he got on the plane one night with this whole bag of books that said Barnes & Noble in it. And Paul was in there with all these books on leadership that he had picked up at Barnes & Noble spread out before him. So he took it seriously when he was named the captain of the team. And again, Paul Pierce was just a delight. I felt like I met him as a boy and I left him as a man. And that was really a great experience for me. I'm not sure what Paul would say. It was a good experience for me. We had our own little communication that people used to say, it's really great how you and Paul give each other a hug in the layup line before. And what Paul would do, and he'd come over and put his arm around me and say, who we got tonight? And I would tell him who the three officials were. And then he would go back around and he would say, hey Josh, hey Bill, how you doing? Like he knew everybody. It was very funny. It was our own little private joke that we had. And at Paul's retirement ceremony, I was emceeing it. And when I introduced him, he just came walking directly to me and he said, who we got tonight?
Gets it to Pierce. Pierce for the game. Got it!
With the help of Johnny Most.
Johnny Most, live off courtside here at the Boston Garden.
John was turned out to be a great mentor for me in that first year or so that I did games. because he didn't want to do TV. He was very happy where he was in radio. So I wasn't taking away any paycheck or anything like that from him. And he said, you need a signature call. You need it eventually. John's was bang. He said, you got it. He said, I like that. That's really good.
McHale, got it!
Launches a three.
Got it! We're tied at 93!
Pierce, difficult shot.
Got it!
Pierce takes it.
Got it! Paul Pierce!
I said, well, okay, I'll give that a shot for a while, and it's just kind of stuck. And then I tried to do it in a lot of college basketball and started to get some people who noticed that this Got It guy was on SportsCenter a lot late at night. Yeah.
Spins away. Ahead to Pierce. To the basket for two, and Boston's got a lead.
Trying to describe in a minimum amount of words what actually just happened, or it was in the process of happening. And again, we lived then, most of the games I did with the Birds of the world, and those guys, the three-point shot was not what it is today. It wasn't a focal point at all. And getting the ball to the hoop was the focal point of what we were trying to do almost every trip up the court. And so to find a way to do that was to just kind of say, to the basket.
Tony to the basket. James to the basket and a foul.
Hopefully you got to the basket, you got that out as the ball was being released, and then you let the crowd determine whether it went in or it didn't. Gil Sanos, again, I thought was the best radio football guy I may have ever heard. Ray Scott was a big influence on me. Pat Summerall was a huge influence on me. Again, less is better. If you look at a game that Ray Scott did, it was star, back to pass, end zone, touchdown. That's it. Maybe 5 words. He was out. Now, most announcers today would take 35 words to get through that. And so I really enjoyed that. I like the less is better. It made me very popular with the color guys I worked with because they had plenty of room to talk, which is what they wanted to do in the first place.
Standing by with head coach Bill Fitch is my partner, Tom Heinsohn. Let's go to both of them right now.
Tommy and I were a good match because I wanted to do the things that he didn't want to do, and he didn't want any part of the things that I wanted to do. So there was never a conflict.
Oh, give me a break! Everybody in the NBA gets that call except what?
They want to hear the color guy talk about stuff like that. They want to hear what Tommy had to say. They want Tommy to go, that's a foul, he didn't get fouled. But
Fans don't like it, I don't like it. Do you like it?
I wasn't too thrilled with that.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page.
We are.
whatever Tommy wanted, that's what they wanted. They didn't want to hear Mike Gorman. I'm not trying to be falsely modest here because it's really got nothing to do with modesty, it's got to do with style. And I just said, okay, I'm gonna lay back. And I have no problem being the caddy here to Tommy, to Bill Raftery, to whoever it was I may work with.
Max looking, loops it to Bird, a runner. It's good! It's good! And the Celtics win it!
Unreal, baby.
Oh, my!
Unbelievable.
Tommy and I used to be very, very aware of the fact that we wanted to make you laugh a couple of times. If we're gonna spend 2.5 hours with you and you're gonna let us into your house, then we have to entertain you a little bit.
I'm beginning to think you could be a voice in one of these Pixar movies.
You think so?
I think you could.
The little guy.
I think you could.
The little guy.
He thought entertainment should be part of the game. He thought his role as the Celtic booster and the villain to the rest of the league was part of the game in the way it should be.
Oh, that's bogus. That is absolutely bogus!
To be Mike, in the Mike and Tommy, was pretty cool. Very cool, actually. I'm really happy to see him recognized under both categories and not just get away with one, let it go. He did win a couple of championships after all, and there are a lot of guys who can say that as a coach. So yeah, I'm thrilled. I hope he gets in as a broadcaster, frankly. I could not have done this. I wouldn't be here without Tom Heinsohn. I mean, let's be honest out there. So yeah, I would like to see him be the only 3 person, and that'd be nice. Be a nice legacy for him. I think he deserves it.
Is it for
I
this
think
year?
it's right there. Broadcast journalism.
It must be. So it's for
Yeah.
2021?
Sure. It's under Mike Green. I know Mike got it last
Okay,
year.
then,
so-
yeah, we figured it out for you.
Yeah, that's good. Michael and I, we've actually been friends for a long time. I met Mike when he was at Fordham, and he was trying to learn the game as an announcer, and came one night in a Big East game. We got talking and kind of have stayed friendly for a long time, and then over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, we always make a point of visiting each other, try to get our families together in the summer, maybe for at least dinner, if nothing else. And certainly for Mike and I, try to get a couple of rounds of golf in every year. He is Mike Green, who is the talent of the NBA right now, as far as announcers go in my mind. But is a very thoughtful, humble guy, does something. He knows every security guy and every usher in every building he goes in, calls them by their first name. Ralph Lawler was the former Clipper announcer. You know Doris Burke, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Late Craig Sager. To see all those play-by-play guys on there and to think that, I mean, I can't imagine Curt Gowdy. If you had to come to me like 10 years ago and say, what about Curt Gowdy? And I'd be like, how can Curt Gowdy and I be in the same sentence unless you're possibly saying, like, you got Curt Gowdy here, he's really good, then you guys like Mike Gorman over here. But other than that, I can't think of any reason I would have been there. So to get that award, you know, again, I'm going to talk about this a little bit when I have to do my little piece at the Hall, but, you know, he was the voice of summer. You knew it was summer. Baseball on TV was not where it was today. And so the radio guys were the guys that you heard. You're on a beach, you're walking up and down a beach, and there's people out listening to music, listening to Red Sox games. The Red Sox are horrible during that time too, but Curt made it so listenable and made it so easy to come down, and Ned Martin beside him was not his equal, but certainly right there, a strong second. You had these two guys who just made the game reason to be the background of your life, which it really was for all of us at that time. And again, if you are a guy my age who now I'm about 14, 15, 16 years old, now I can really listen, and I'm thinking, like, you just listen to Curt, you're like, this is how this should be done. You could tell it just came so easily to him, and you were so comfortable in the presence of that voice. So now to have my name on there stops me as it is right now. I'm kind of in my tracks. So yeah, it's a thrill. I really don't know how to answer that except to say, I want to look at him. Are you sure? You sure you want to do this?